Hi, it's Susie here. I just want to talk about the latest situation with the PRS and how they are going to reduce their grants by 60% for composers and creative music projects. For many people, this will be devastating news, but I wanted to share with you my approach to putting on music and how there really are other ways to do this. Firstly, I would say that the PRS is very oversubscribed with people applying for their grants, and therefore the chance of getting them are extremely slim. I have what I euphemistically call a graveyard of rejections from the PRS. I think it must be about 4 or 5 in the last 2 years. And really the grants that I were going for were incredibly small. We're talking about £5,000, which to put on an opera really is not enough. I want to tell you about how I put on my research opera, Quilt Song, at the Birmingham Old Rep, and exactly how I did it, so that it perhaps can inspire you to get on and make your projects and support your work professionally without actually having to spend all this time and disappointment applying to organisations which have very little money to give in the first place. So the overall budget for Quilt Song was £25,000, and a good whack of that, about £10,000, went into fees for the professional players. That was 13 players in the band and 4 professional soloists. I also paid for a director and a repetiteur. So that money specifically was raised through my own efforts by running courses for a choir over a 3-year period. So the choir on average came 3 times a year, and on average coughed up about 1,500 for each course, sometimes a little less, sometimes a bit more. In the end, I had acquired about £10,000 from 9 weekends of running courses with choirs. Now, this was extremely enjoyable. They were singing my music, and it was actually a lot less work than all the applications I have made in the last 3 years. And I came out with a result. So I think you can already see that by our own efforts as composers and music creators, we really have the power to do something ourselves. Now, the way I got the other money was largely through bartering. So bartering is a really impressive way to involve the community in your project. And as Quilt Song was being put on at the Birmingham Old Rep, I had to take my entire crew from East Anglia, all the musicians and singers, and I found them all homestays, either through my university, Birmingham City University, where I was doing my PhD, or through other contacts. And of course, this brought more people into the audience. I also got free use of the theatre for a week, which was worth £5,000, and I bartered that by bartering my skills as a vocal animateur, and I went to the Birmingham Ormiston Academy for 2 years and trained up a troupe of young singers. So they then performed in Quilt Song. So I think maybe you're beginning to get an idea of how I put all these things together to put on an opera for £25,000. And going back to the PRS, my recent application was for my opera Artemisia, which has 10 singers and a band of 10 players. And that would have offered so much employment to professional singers and players. I didn't get the grant, and the grant was only for £5,000, really a drop in the ocean. I will still put on Artemisia using my new methods. So I want you to think really carefully now, as a composer or a music creator, how you can actually take the power for yourself and not necessarily feel that you've got to keep on scrapping around for the money in these very small pools of money. So The other thing I wanted to say and share with you was that there are other methods by which we can raise money as composers, and I think that's really important. Always at the back of my mind as a professional musician is the question, am I going to have enough money to live in a reasonable way? Am I going to be able to heat my house, pay my rent, feed myself, get around on the train, go to other people's performances? All this costs a lot of money, so I need to have money. Now, the way I do it is to have teaching. So I teach composition and musical awareness at Junior Guildhall, and I put out a really mighty day on a Saturday. I teach usually about 8 hours back to back, and that provides me with a basic income. I also have other income streams. I conduct 2 choral societies who pay me a fee for conducting them. I also have a paid situation in the summer where I go and facilitate kayaking on the island of Skiros, and that is actually pure joy. So I found a way as a composer to make an income for myself which keeps me in body and soul happy, and I think one needs that as a starting ground before you can then take off and raise money for other projects. As well as having mentioned running courses, which is a very good way of getting money. You can get people to come and do workshops. You can teach them how to compose, songwriting workshops. People are prepared to pay a considerable amount of money in comparison to, say, a ticket price to come and see our performances. And that is just the way it is. Do not forget that all the major opera companies, for example, who put on opera, they get huge grants. They couldn't possibly pay the orchestra and the singers and the stage management enough money out of ticket sales. So this has always been the case. And I also would say it's always been the case that composers have taught. Mozart, Bach, they all taught as well. And, you know, there's great value in teaching, not only for your students, but actually for yourself as a composer. So don't rule that out. Get that sorted and then start to raise the money. So courses, as I've mentioned, is one thing. Maybe you have another skill you can sell on. In my case, I paint. I paint a lot. Here's a painting behind me. And I usually have a art exhibition about once on average every 3 years. And I usually make at least £2,000 out of my art sales. So I keep my prices quite modest so that people will buy the paintings. But it works, and 2,000 is a lot of money. Sometimes it's more. Now, there are other ways I've found of making money. For example, I just completed composing a sea requiem, and I actually set out to compose the requiem as a memoriam to my dad, who I just loved so much. But I also thought it would be really nice if people had the opportunity to dedicate a movement to a loved one. And so I just made one post on Facebook, and I said, if you would like to make a dedication to a loved one of a movement of the sea requiem, do let me know, and you can make a contribution. And I put a ballpark of what I felt was an appropriate contribution. So I said most people on a sliding scale offer between £50 to £300 to have a movement in the sea requiem dedicated to a loved one. Well, the first 3 people who took me up on that offer gave the full £300, and then a couple more gave £50, and a couple said, oh, I don't have any money to give at all. And I said, that's fine, you can have the dedication for free. So I think this kind of sliding scale is very appealing to people. So I made £1,000 out of one Facebook post. So use your imagination. I want to finish off with an example of a musician who has really forged a career of the greatest musical excellence. So John Eliot Gardiner created the Monteverdi Choir off his own back. He used his own money. He didn't have an Arts Council grant. He didn't have official recognition from some other body. He just got on and did it himself. And we all know that he has achieved a choir and ensemble of great excellence. He became knighted for it. He performs in the proms. So I really want to give you and myself hope as composers and music creators that we can create this level of excellence through our own independent entrepreneurship. I wish you the very best of luck. Go for it.